As I take a step away from Save the World and return back to Battle Royale, I have always wanted to cover this topic. In December 2023, following the success of Chapter 4 Season OG, Fortnite tweeted that the OG season had exceeded our expectations and hinted at plans to bring it back. You see, initially I, like many others, thought this tweet was teasing a return to Chapter 2. However, a few months later, in April of 2024, we got probably one of the biggest leaks in Fortnite history. On April 18th, 2024, a leak from 4chan revealed Fortnite's entire roadmap for the year. This roadmap outlines upcoming content for every game mode, and looking back at the Battle Royale section and comparing it to what we experienced in Chapter 5, we can see how the roadmap accurately predicted each season. However, at the end of the roadmap, we saw that we will be returning to Chapter 2, so case closed. That's what the tweet was referencing. What the tweet was actually teasing, however, was the release of FortniteOG. On December 6, 2024, Fortnite launched FortniteOG, an official game mode designed to revisit the Chapter 1 seasons. It remains unclear whether they plan to continue releasing new seasons after Season X or transition into Chapter 2. What is confirmed though, is that Fortnite intends to rerun Chapter 1 live events as well. Tim the Tatman was sponsored by Fortnite and was provided with a promotional read that outlined what players could expect from this game mode. In that promotional read, this is what he said.
Fortnite Chapter 1 is officially back, and it's literally starting with Chapter 1 Season 1. We're at the very beginning. Of course, I'm getting rezzed right now. You can play it through the OG Pass. It has new takes on some of those popular outfits. You can see we have one of them here. No bots in OG Fortnite. Massive W. Favorite POIs are back. Pleasant Park, Loot Lake, Greasy Grove, Tomato Town, Retail Row, Salty Springs. Look out for your favorite Season 1 items in the loot pool and experience some of your favorite live in-game events all over again. So that little document actually just confirmed that the live events are going to be brought back as well.
Since FortniteOG recently launched Season 3, I thought it would be a perfect time to take a nostalgia trip back and explore the history of Fortnite Chapter 1. In this video, I'll talk about what to expect, share some fun facts, and share the community's theories or reaction to these events. The video will be divided into two parts. Part 1 will focus on the mini events, which, fun fact, played a role in kickstarting the story and often served as a build-up to the main live events. Then Part 2 will dive into those main events, breaking down the story and the moments that made Fortnite storytelling so unique and kept us hooked. I've created a video on mini events before, but this one will go into much more detail as it focused specifically on Chapter 1. Before I jump in, I want to ask this question. What exactly constitutes a mini event? No, really, this is a serious question. I feel like the definition of a mini event has evolved over the years. Events that we experience today may have been considered mini events in the earlier days. For the context of Chapter 1, I would define mini events as brief moments that do not include cutscenes or any major game-altering outcomes, but still adds to the story's progression. Many of the mini events that you'll see are not really game-changing, and they usually go away after a couple of days, but it adds to the story of that season. With that confusion out of the way, we are ready to start the story of Fortnite's mini events. And like every great story, this one begins with a star falling from the sky. On March 20th, 2018, players noticed something strange in the sky. There was a star that appeared, but it seemed to be getting closer with each passing day. It was eventually revealed that what players thought was a star was actually a comet, which led players to speculate about where it might land. Before it was revealed to be a comet, players had many theories, ranging from an impending alien invasion to nuclear missiles. But two theories stood out. One is based on its trajectory, and the other came from a bug. The comet trajectory theory involved players working together to plot its path. As map changes occurred, telescopes began appearing on mountaintops, and by aligning their placements with the comet's movement towards the island, many concluded that it could land at tilted towers. There were other theories that supported this claim, which I will mention later. The second theory was a bug that Epic could not have timed better. Players were experiencing unusual controller vibrations, but it was not just any normal vibrations that you will feel during a Fortnite match. Instead, it was two types of vibrations. One was a light vibration lasting 1 second, while the other was a stronger vibration lasting 1.5 seconds. These vibrations occurred at random times during a match. Now, it was later discovered that these vibrations were triggered by vending machines loading into the match whenever the player approached a POI that contained them. But at the time, many players were experiencing this bug, and a popular theory was posted by Vigilance Foe Tracer on Reddit. They collected all the vibrations that they felt, compiled them into a single long chain, and translated the vibrations into Morse code, where the short vibrations represented dots and the long vibrations represented dashes. This translation uncovered a message, SOS D5 418. This hidden message was interpreted as an emergency alert from Tilted Towers. SOS is a universal distress signal used in emergencies to call for help. D5 refers to the location of the top half of Tilted Towers, and 418, the player base was divided on what they interpreted as. One group suggested it referred to April 18th, while the other thought it was talking about the month and year, April 2018. Besides that, on April 18th, players organized a community event called the Tilted Towers Wake Ceremony. This was created to honor Tilted Towers due to the impending doom. At 6 PM EST, players queued into solo matches, landed at Tilted Towers, and collaborated to destroy every structure in the POI. After demolishing Tilted, they celebrated with a dance party until the storm eventually eliminated them. There are other notable theories and Easter eggs during this time. For example, if you manage to clip into the mountain in replay mode and look below Tilted Towers, you can see what players thought resembled a crater. Data miners have discovered comet assets in the game files, and if you ADS the comet, you can hear a weird sound, which, when analyzed using a spectrogram, revealed this. While the player base was convinced that the comet would land at Tilted Towers, the team over at Epic Games HQ didn't even know where it would actually land. This was confirmed by Donald Mustard during the This Week in Marvel podcast. This is what he said in that podcast.
And I knew where I probably wanted the comet to hit, but the speculation of where it was going to hit actually changed where we had the comet hit. Because I was going to have it slightly in a different spot, and we had to make some of it art beforehand. But everyone started thinking like it's going to hit Tilted Towers. It's going to hit this city that we had in Fortnite. And so like, okay, I don't want to hit Tilted yet because we have other stuff we want to do with it, but we can get it closer there, and we'll start to veer the angle even closer so that people think, oh my goodness, it's going to hit this. And
I feel like one of the reasons Fortnite stood out from other games at that time was Epic playing along with the player base. This is what else Mustard said in the same podcast.
And then even like people started, like this meme started to kind of appear in the community of like rip Tilted. Like people started to be like, that's it, Tilted's gone. And so because of that kind of improv nature, you know, the design team, we all sat down and we're like, oh my gosh, we need to make like crazy conspiracy theory, like people standing on the roofs, like an Independence Day, like welcoming the aliens. Like what if we made like rip Tilted signs? We put them all across the buildings on the top of Tilted Towers so that we're leaning into the narrative that is being created by the community, right? And so some awesome artists went in really fast, made that, and like within 48 hours, like all the buildings in Tilted, you know, were littered with these rip Tilted signs everywhere that had been influenced by the storytelling of the community. And so this is stuff that we're doing.
The fact that he paid attention to the players and their theories by adding signs featuring those theories to one of the buildings in Tilted Towers is just so cool. Some of these signs were an illustration of a comet, a heart-shaped design with a silhouette of buildings symbolizing Tilted Towers where players thought the comet would land, another heart-shaped sign with a silhouette of a UFO which references theories about aliens arriving, and a sign that had the word today scribbled out and replaced with tomorrow underneath it. This was Epic Games trolling with the community, as players constantly speculated and changed the date of when the comet would strike Tilted. These little touches from Epic back in the day are what made Fortnite so special. Anyways, as the comet appeared above players' heads, several other mini-events were also taking place. On April 25th, televisions across the island began broadcasting an EMS emergency signal. This consisted of a color bar test pattern with a llama in the center, accompanied by static. Interestingly, Fortnite's Twitter account mirrored what was shown on the TV. The following day, April 26, small meteor fragments crashed into the island, disrupting players' buildings and hiding spots as they seemed to target them. Now we are ready to move on to the next mini-event. On June 27, 2018, a 72-hour countdown started appearing on TVs around the island. Once the countdown reached 0 and immediately following the blast-off event on June 30th, a strange phenomenon began occurring. Objects on the island mysteriously started to disappear while others reappeared from different times. First, let's discuss what disappeared. About an hour after the event, a rift appeared at Lonely Lodge, causing the welcome sign to rift away. On July 1st, a rift appeared in the sign of the motel, which also rifted away a day later. Shortly after the motel sign disappeared, another rift appeared on the spinning tomato statue in Tomato Town, and it too rifted away the following day. After the spinning tomato statue disappeared, yet another rift was found on the Nam sign in Retail Row. I assume we can all guess what happens next. Yup, as expected, the sign rifted away the next day. After the Nam sign rifted away, a rift appeared on the Burger Head in Greasy Grove, which rifted away the day after. If you want to know where the Burger Head rifted to and the entire ARG story surrounding it, I have a video about it if you're interested. So if you've been following along with the dates, we are now on July 5th. At this point, players have been following the oddities that were happening around the island, and many theories came out during that time. One of the popular theories was that the rifts were part of a space-time continuum, given that objects were rifting away. Players were waiting for objects to start appearing on the island, especially since the rifts, which had been taken items, seemed to be slowing down and were now occurring every other day. Their theories turned out to be correct, as on July 6, a rift near the mountain northwest of Greasy Grove brought in an anchor, confirming that the rifts were indeed pulling objects from different dimensions. In addition to the anchor, several other items were rifted in from various dimensions. A stagecoach appeared a day later, following a rift that appeared above a hill near Moisty Mire. And on July 10th, the skeletal remains of a dinosaur were rifted into the island, landing near the ice cream truck in Moisty Mire. Throughout this period of objects' disappearance and reappearance, the crack in the sky was growing larger. On the final day, July 12th, the crack was releasing sand, which was teasing a new biome to the island, Paradise Palms. With this buildup, we are ready to move on to the next mini-event in... The crack in the sky, left behind by the visitor after the blast-off event, had left an impression on the island, until it began to shrink. By the middle of the season, the cracks in the sky gradually grew smaller, and the trails that once connected them slowly disappeared. Eventually, the only remaining crack was the original one created during the event. As this crack continued to shrink, its color shifted from light blue to deep dark purple, and it began to produce lightning strikes. On August 24th, the crack in the sky started to target cacti on a hill southwest of Paradise Palms, striking them in a specific pattern over a period of time. The lightning that struck the cacti grew stronger and lasted longer as time went on. Once all the cacti and rocks were destroyed, this happened. A giant purple cube appeared, finally closing the crack in the sky in the process. No one knew the purpose of this mysterious cube, but it had unique properties. It could heal players who approached it, strike anyone nearby if it was shot, regardless of who fired the shot, and all sides were bouncy. Many speculated that it was an alien artifact, something connected to the visitor, or perhaps something entirely beyond human comprehension. One popular theory was that the cube was a tesseract, as players using replay mode discovered that they could see a smaller cube within the larger one. Oh, and someone named the cube Kevin, and the name stuck within the community. However, these theories ramped up once the cube started rolling. Where was it going? What was its end goal? Throughout the rest of the season, the cube would roll around the entire island, at times printing mysterious runes as it moved. While the cube was printing these runes, it created a zero gravity field in the area, causing players to jump higher than usual. Besides that, it remains unclear what the glyphs meant, and even today, I don't believe we have an answer for. But what I do know is that during the grand finals of the summer skirmish at PAX West in 2018, something totally unexpected happened. The final circle was north of Fatal Fields, overlapping with the first rune. Players, both casual and pro, were caught off guard as getting close to the rune caused them to fly in a zero gravity field, a completely new experience that forced them to adapt quickly since building and aiming were impossible. While it's unclear if Epic Games had planned for the circle to end there, this mini-event perfectly encapsulated the chaos and excitement of the cube's journey around the island. We never knew where it was going, or why. In the final month of the cube's journey, it passed through Tilted Towers and destroyed a newly built thrift store, a gag in the Fortnite community, and it made its way to its final destination, Loot Lake. After that, the cube made its final roll into the water, and, well, take a look yourself. The cube deactivated and Loot Lake transformed into Thanos Lake. For the last week of the season, the entire lake became bouncy. Don't forget about the cube because it's coming right back in. Once the cube was activated again, it absorbed all the energy that it previously released from the lake and rose from the waters, taking the Loot Lake house with it. The runes that the cube created last season had started to corrupt the island. During the first half of the season, the floating island moved across different areas of the map, specifically to locations where the glyphs had been placed by the cube in the previous season. I will explain in more detail why the cube was doing this in a live event video, but for now, the corruption zone provided the cube with energy. We witnessed the cube entering these corruption zones, lifting chunks of land into the air, absorbing its energy, and that caused cube material to grow on the floating island. Now, the community began to speculate about what the cube was doing. One popular theory suggests that the cube was harnessing energy to open a new rift to another dimension, and knowing what we know now about the cube and its connection to the last reality, this theory seems pretty spot on. Once the floating island visited all the corruption zones and returned to the center of the map, the cube imploded slightly, separating itself from the Loot Lake house, and projected a beam of purple energy upwards into the sky. However, since the cube had so much energy and struggled to control it, signs of strain began to show, and cracks started to form. Towards the end of the season, we saw the cube melt and leak into the vortex. Of course, seeing this, the community started to theorize and speculate, and the most popular theory was that the cube was on the verge of exploding. There was also another theory about it being related to Thanos. Okay, let's move on. While the entire cube situation was unfolding on the island, something else was happening off its coast. On November 19th, players spotted what appeared to be a white cloud in the distance on the southwest side of the island. As the days went by, the cloud got closer and turned out to be a snowstorm approaching. As the snowstorm grew closer, the shape of a giant iceberg became visible, showing that it was on a direct collision course with the island. This approach of the iceberg left players confused, wondering where it came from. Theories about the iceberg spread, as players quickly noticed that a parachute spotted at Flush Factory a week earlier displayed the same emblem found on Aim's shoulders, the secret Battle Pass skin. Also, the skin's frozen arms and feet further suggested that everything was connected to the mysterious iceberg. On the final day of the season, Spawn Island experienced snowfall, and at night, aurora lights danced across the sky, creating a calming atmosphere. However, with the iceberg now at its closest, players noticed a castle perched on top, with a light glowing from a window, an eerie signal that someone or something was inside, drawing ever closer to the island. Personally, I felt that this season seriously ramped up in the case of mini events that players have experienced, so let's go through them in order. From December 31st to January 1st, the world celebrated the new year, and the game reflected this by having a small celebration every hour throughout the day. On January 15th, a floating sphere appeared above Polar Peak. However, taking a closer look inside revealed the Ice King, and it seemed like he was powering up. This discovery led to many theories, with one of the most popular suggesting that the Ice King might be creating or powering up a new cube. The reason for this theory is that, upon closer inspection of his hands, players noticed what looked like a cube-like structure spinning around. This left players wondering if he was the one who brought the cube to the island, or if he had a different version of the cube. Interestingly, this cube theory had been around since the start of Season 7, as the lobby background from that time shows what resembles a massive cube. Right now, let's take a step away from the Ice King, as that is not the only thing that has appeared. South of Polar Peak, a giant block of ice suddenly appeared, and it turned out to be a community-driven event. This massive block of ice had an insane amount of health, 50 billion to be exact, and players across multiple servers joined together to chip away at it using their pickaxes, curious to see what was inside. Well, it seemed that word must have gone out about this block because 10 hours after discovering it, the block was finally destroyed, revealing a bunker. This bunker has created multiple theories among players. Some believe it was a troll by Epic Games, while others were convinced it might hold significance in future events or storylines. For now though, the bunker remains as a troll and we all fell for it. Thank you, Epic. Anyway, back to the main mini event story. On January 16th, televisions around the island began displaying a weather warning, indicating a blizzard was on the way, primarily due to the Ice King's actions. Long story short, the prisoner, who was once a trusted ally of the Ice King, had a dispute and was frozen in chains in the Ice King's dungeon. The Ice King imprisoned the prisoner to suppress his powers, which threatened the cold and control he was trying to keep over the island. However, the ice began to melt due to the warmer climate. To slow him down and regain control, the Ice King needed to act quickly. The next day, the TV started displaying a 48-hour weather countdown, signaling that the Ice King was preparing to execute his plan. With 23 hours remaining, the Ice King's cape emblem appeared on the outer, and blue flames appeared on the inner circumference of the sphere. If you think of this sphere like a clock, you'll notice that the outer emblems count down in odd hours, while the inner flame counts down in even hours. As players count down the final 24 hours, each hour an emblem disappears, or a flame extinguishes, accompanied by a booming sound that echoes throughout the island. This signaled that the Ice King is one step closer to executing his plan. When the final flame extinguishes and the hour ends, the Ice King put his plan into action to slow down the prisoner and regain control. This is what happens. However, this only worked temporarily. On January 28th, just over a week after the blizzard, the dungeon where the prisoner was held melted significantly, revealing the prisoner's hand and the chains securing him. Just one day later, the prisoner broke free from the chains, finally escaping the dungeon. Throughout the final month of the season, the snow continued to melt, and the prisoner began wreaking havoc on the island. Fissures started appearing, causing destruction and signaling that a major change was coming. In the final week of the season, Wailing Wood's grass and trees turned brown, as if they were being charred. On the last day, the final fissure appeared, destroying the same Tilted Towers building that the cube had hit in Season 5. Meanwhile, back in Wailing Woods, ashes and fire particles rose from the ground, and it was clear that the prisoner had something planned. Players knew that a volcano was going to transform Wailing Woods. Unfortunately, there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. In Season 8, Fortnite began leaning heavily into the storyline, making it easy to miss important moments or details if you weren't paying close attention. This season also placed a big emphasis on community-driven events that required a lot of pickaxing. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. But first, let me walk you through what was happening in the first quarter of the season. The government was on a search for something important that they knew, but the players on the island didn't. At the time, nobody, not even lore enthusiasts, was sure about what was happening on the island until a helicopter was spotted surveying various locations. The government established excavation sites in search of something they believe was significant. On March 28th, the first excavation site was set up between Fatal Fields and Paradise Palms near the Broken Bridge. Similar to the ice block event from the previous season, this was also a community-driven event where piles of dirt had 1 billion health each and required players from multiple servers to deal damage in real time. Once players destroyed all the dirt piles, a geyser was revealed at the bottom of the dig site. Following this discovery, 5 additional geysers emerged. After players found the geyser, many theories popped up. 2 of the most popular theories suggest that the geyser was linked to a natural phenomenon based on increasing volcanic activity, or that whatever the government was searching for had excavated the wrong location. In hindsight, both theories seem to be right. Volcanic activities had intensified, and the government's helicopter had continued its search at different locations. On April 2nd, the government established a second excavation site at Dusty Divot, where once again, the piles of dirt had 1 billion health each. This time, however, upon destroying the last dirt block, players uncovered lava instead of another geyser. This discovery led to many players to believe that the volcano was beginning to destroy the islands. Personally, I'm not sure anyone else thought this, but I thought the lava would rise and fill the entire divot. Anyone else? Just me? Alright. Besides that, the government did not find what they were looking for, so they decided to move on. On April 5th, the third excavation site was located east of Loot Lake. As with the previous sites, players worked together to chip away at the massive dirt piles, each having 1 billion health. Surely this had to be the final time, and I felt like the government was violating some labor laws since we were doing this for free. But this time, as the last dirt pile was destroyed, this is what players uncovered. A metal roof deep in the ground. theories quickly spread about how this underground bunker might be related to the hatch seen in Wailing Woods and south of Polar Peak. After weeks of digging, it seemed that the government had finally uncovered what they have been searching for all along. On April 17th, they completed the excavation at Loot Lake and unearthed a mysterious metal bunker with a sealed entrance. Upon closer inspection, players noticed that the outer section of the bunker had 5 inserts, but nobody knew where these inserts were located. Then, on April 19th, one of these inserts appeared. The first floating rune appeared northeast of Lucky Landing. Players could damage it by shooting or using their pickaxes, but once its health reached 0, it began to move and its health reset. This was a communal effort as players worked together across multiple servers to deal damage to it. This process was repeated as the rune slowly made its way to Loot Lake, where it inserted itself into the first slot. On April 22nd, the second floating rune appeared above Loot Lake. This time, players had to locate 3 lasers emanating from generators resembling the rune, each with floating orbs above them. These generators were found on top of the volcano, northeast of Pleasant Park, and south of Shifty Shafts. To insert the floating rune, players needed to use their pickaxes to adjust the laser generator's aim, aligning the beams with the floating rune. Once again, this required a collaborative effort from the community, and although it was eventually completed, it seemed that Epic Games had to intervene because it was quite buggy. On April 25th, the third floating rune appeared at the clubhouse in Yonder Yard. This time, players had to dance near a meter next to a rune to fill it up. No pickaxing this time. Once the meter was full, the rune teleported to Loot Lake and inserted itself. On April 28th, the fourth floating rune appeared west of Loot Lake, on top of a mountain. A 3x3 grid of 9 squares, each displaying a different color, was soon recognized as a community puzzle. Players quickly discovered that pickaxing the orb above the square, which had 100 million health, would cycle its color between red, green, and blue. On that day, players across all servers seemed to agree that blue was the color of the day, and so every player was determined to turn all the squares blue. Once every tile matched the color blue, the puzzle was completed, and the floating rune teleported to Loot Lake, inserting itself into its slot. The fifth and final floating rune appeared at the top of the volcano. Players had to contribute ammo, materials, and weapons to fill up a progress bar displayed on the symbol. Once the bar was filled, the rune teleported to Loot Lake and inserted itself into the final slot. And finally, we reached the final mini event in... Throughout the season, the ice that is holding Polar Peak has been cracking and melting due to the volcanic eruption from the previous season. But on May 22nd, players started hearing a strange noise coming from deep within the ice. It felt like something was awakening from a deep sleep, as players heard what resembled breathing. With each what is believed to be an exhale, wisps of snow slipped through the cracks, adding to the sensation that something alive was trapped inside the ice. Many speculated that could be a dragon-like monster related to the eggs seen in Season 7, or some type of creature, but they weren't too sure. However, everything changed on May 28th when the ice melted further, revealing the eye of a creature behind the ice. When players approached the creature, they could see the eye focusing on them and following their movements. Throughout that week, as the ice continued to crack and melt, more of the eye became visible. But on June 6, the creature inside Polar Peak broke free, taking Polar Peak with it. Footprints appeared where the monster had escaped, and judging by their size, it was clear that this was no small creature. In the following weeks of Season 9, players caught glimpses of the creature swimming around the island, carrying Polar Peak on its back, before sinking beneath the surface. Each sighting caused the island to tremble, adding to the feeling of danger and urgency. On July 20th, during the final showdown event, the Mecha team leader broke open the vault and harnessed the 0 Point's energy to defeat the Devourer in a battle to save reality. However, this action had serious consequences as the 0 Point began to crack, becoming exposed and unstable. In the days that followed, the cracks in the 0 Point worsened, radiating energy that caused reality to destabilize. The 0 point grew brighter, emanated particles, and began to produce a heartbeat-like sound. By the final day, July 31st, the 0 point reached a critical state, flashing intensely and unleashing streams of energy particles. This sets the stage for the start of Season X, where the 0 point reaches breaking point and exploded. Well, that's it. That's all the mini events in Chapter 1. Season 3 started about a month ago, and the comet is now visible in the sky. Based on the spectrogram leak, there might be some minor differences, as the spectrogram isn't the same as the original. While the graphics have been updated, I believe the experience will largely stay true to the original based on promotional material Fortnite shared with Tim the Tatman, but we have to wait and see. As I mentioned earlier, this is a 2-part series. Part 2 will focus on the main events, and I will take a closer look at the storyline. So expect a video about that, I would say like around the time of the rocket launch. Thank you so much for the support lately, and your patience. I love you all, and I will see you very soon.